Hello and welcome everyone to day 3 of Astrho Live Partner Showcase. We're really excited to be here today with PriceLabs and Oliver Marzinski. He's going to do a little quick demo and showcase how PriceLabs is a fantastic solution for revenue management for a short-term rental homeowner. And with that, I'll turn that over to Oliver and let him run with the show.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So yeah, everyone, thanks so much for joining me. My name's Oliver. I've been with PriceLabs for about 2.5 years at this point. Initially, my background was in revenue management, doing revenue management for a property manager out here in Seattle who had right around 200 listings. We were using a different revenue management solution at the time. I convinced them to switch over to PriceLabs, worked with the system for quite some time, and then ended up joining the team here. So I definitely have that experience as a user. And then currently I'm using PriceLabs to manage all of my family's short-term rentals. So parents, girlfriends, aunts, and uncles, they all found me as their expert. So I'm the one managing those portfolios day to day here. So a little bit about the company here. We are a full revenue management solution. So we focus on the dynamic pricing side of things, which we're most known for. And then most recently, we've been moving into the market data and portfolio analytics side of things. So I'll focus most of my time on dynamic pricing, but yeah, we do provide all of those services here. So if you're just looking to get more data on, hey, what bookings are coming in your market, or more data on what bookings are coming in for your own listings, and what are those kind of trends that you're seeing, definitely different solutions for all of your needs here. So about the company, we were founded in 2014. Two of our co-founders, one was working for United Airlines at the time, working on their predictive pricing algorithm. So as you can imagine, they're always trying to optimize revenue for every single airplane seat that they have. He basically took everything he knew from those algorithms, applied it to the vacation rental side of things here. So our other co-founder, he was managing an apartment, I believe, in Chicago at the time. So there was definitely that crossover. They were friends from high school, and hey, could we be using this same technology to optimize revenue elsewhere? So that's where the idea came from. Since then, I mean, our team has been growing like crazy, very international at this point, where we used to be headquartered in the US, but now we have people everywhere in Brazil, Portugal, France, India, all over the country. So yeah, team is growing. And then over time, we've priced over 100,000 properties in over 100 countries. So with our system, we have no restrictions on geography. So wherever you are, as long as there's other vacation rentals in your area, either on Airbnb or Vrbo or booking.com, we can definitely give you that market data and then help you set those prices for your listings here. So as I mentioned earlier, 3 different products we focus on. Today, we'll mostly talk about dynamic pricing, since that's kind of what we've historically been known for. But then if you are interested in getting that market data side of things, so just purely trends on, hey, what bookings are happening, or if you're interested in diving into your portfolio and your portfolio analytics, I mean, this is a free tool, and then also a separate tool for those market dashboards here. But starting out, what is dynamic pricing? So essentially what we're focusing on here is adjusting the rates and availability of your listings frequently based off of the various booking factors that we see. So as you can imagine, you have your entire calendar open. Each of those dates in your calendar, it's not worth exactly the same amount. So lots of factors influence how much someone would be willing to pay for a specific date. So things like market demand for specific dates, how many people are booking, what's the seasonality, are we in the high season or the low season, is it a Monday versus a Friday, are there any events going on, how far out is the date? So all of this is really influencing how much someone might pay to stay at your apartment or your villa or your condo. So essentially with dynamic pricing, we're trying to account for all of these factors here and then optimize your rates accordingly. So our system, we go into Airbnb, booking.com, and Vrbo on a daily basis. We scrape all of the data in terms of, hey, what's available for future dates, what are prices set at for future dates for other listings in your area. And based off of that data, we're constantly refreshing our pricing recommendations to make sure you're charging as much as possible while still filling up your calendar here. So how that actual price setting works, we're not just price matching you to the market. So we're not saying, hey, on this weekend here, the average price for a 2-bedroom is $150. So let's set your prices at $150. We're really going in and looking at those demand trends to see, hey, when are people booking more or when are people booking less? And we're adjusting prices based off of those booking trends here. So essentially, each of your listings would start at a base price or an average price level for that listing. And then we go in and we adjust rates based off of those trends that we see. So we might start at an average rate of 100, but then we'll say, hey, it's the high season. Lots of people are booking these dates. These dates are a little slower, not very many bookings coming in here, low season slower. So we're really looking at those demand trends, optimizing your rates on a daily basis, and then sending that price out to either Airbnb and Vrbo directly or to any PMS or channel manager that you might be using here. So flipping over to the system to show you how this might work. So this is one of the properties I'm managing. It's a 2-bedroom condo that lives over a garage here. And you can see that the system is essentially going in and setting all of these rates for you based off of those market factors that we're seeing. So for example, we might see, hey, it's the high season, let's increase rates by 10%. Demand's a little lower for this date, so let's decrease it by 4%. Then we can also apply any sort of rules for last minute discounts, occupancy-based adjustments, far out premiums. The system kind of handles all of that automatically and then would push these rates over directly to your Airbnb account or directly to Vrbo or your PMS here. So I will say the biggest thing with PriceLabs for the vast majority of our users, I mean, the connection is super simple where you would just connect your Airbnb account. We would push rates over. That's about all the setup that you need outside of maybe setting a minimum price, maybe setting a maximum price for your listings here. But if you ever see booking trends that you don't necessarily agree with, let's say you say, hey, way out into the future, all of my weekends are getting booked. I understand that PriceLabs is using all of this data to set my weekend rates for me, but maybe I could be squeezing out a little more money for those weekend rates that have historically been getting booked super strongly here. So we really like to leave the users in full control over the system. So if there are any booking trends that you say, hey, maybe we could do a little bit better here. Things are slipping by last minute unbooked. Maybe some of your gaps are going unbooked or your weekends are getting booked too heavily. You do have full control over the algorithm through our customizations here. So I'll say about 80% of our users let the algorithm run on its own, works very well in most cases in terms of maximizing occupancy and maximizing revenue here. But if there is a discrepancy where you say, hey, maybe there's something I could do differently. I mean, you are definitely the revenue manager. You know your listings better than the algorithm could. You know what's happening in your market. So you do have full control over making those adjustments and setting up those rules to just let it price itself over time here. Perfect. So with that pricing side of things, we also give you a ton of neighborhood data to work off of when you're coming up with your rates. So very simple to see, hey, how do the prices that PriceLabs is recommending compare to the average rates in my market? What does the occupancy for my market look like for all future dates? So if you, let's say, aren't getting any bookings in October yet, you can see, hey, maybe that's actually a demand issue and not an issue with your pricing because no one's booking those October dates yet. So really trying to keep you as informed as possible on what's happening in your market so that you can kind of price your listings accordingly. So with that market information side of things, that's where our market dashboards really come in here. And sorry, my tabs are getting hid behind Zoom. Perfect. So that's where our market dashboards really come in, where if you're someone who likes to be in full control, let's say you don't necessarily want a system to fully take over your pricing, you could use our market dashboards feature to say, hey, give me data on this entire area where I'm located. You can filter all of this data to say, hey, only show me 2-bedroom listings or beachfront listings or listings with pool that you kind of compete directly against. And then we'll show you a ton of historic data to see, hey, what have things been booking out at in the past? And then also a ton of future data to say, hey, what do occupancies look like? What do prices look like? How far in advance are people booking? How long are they staying for? What are cleaning fees? So really giving you as much data as possible to make those informed decisions about where to price yourself here.
Oliver, just real quickly, we did have an audience question while you're on this section.
Yeah.
Is that gray occupancy line, is that the occupancy for your specific market, such as your localized region that you've selected?
Definitely. So when we're looking at the future occupancy of each listing individually, this will be super local to each of the listings that you're pricing. So we basically create a radius where you're right in the middle of the market, and then we'll expand that radius, hopefully until we get to 300 listings in the surrounding area. Otherwise, if you're in a less popular area, maybe you're in the suburbs or a more rural market, we like to get at least 100, 150 listings or so. So all of that, that occupancy, this price information, it's coming directly from the 1 to 300 or so listings that are geographically closest to you here.
Okay, great, thanks. Hopefully that answers your question, Hal. So appreciate you stopping there for a moment.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome, thank you, Hal. Yep, so that data, that would be included for each of your listings. So you could basically say, hey, if I'm not getting the bookings I was hoping to see, you can both see what's happening in that market closest to me, and then also what's happening with your prices compared to the market, which is that colored section. So if you're not getting bookings and your price way above the market, good indicator to say, hey, let's rein back those prices a little bit. Or if you're sitting totally full and you are on the very low end of the market, hey, let's boost up those rates since it looks like we might be leaving a little bit of money on the table here. So for the most part, system definitely runs itself, but then you do have that ability to go in, say, hey, for any dates, let's make any adjustments. Let's make adjustments to those rules for how we're pricing weekdays versus weekends, how we're pricing based off of our own occupancy, and so on. So very flexible platform. We have a lot of people use us where you might have been totally on top of your rates. You might have been, making those adjustments for seasonality, making those adjustments for day of week, setting those event rates and everything. Hopefully our system could just be a great tool for automating a lot of those manual processes that you're already doing on your own, and then also going in and saving you a lot of time with those manual inputs. So instead of you going in, making adjustments whenever there's a gap to, let's say, drop rates, change the minimum stay, those are all things that you could just set up rules for, and then the system could automate for you. So both those, hopefully higher revenues, and then the time savings from just having that automation in place. But that's generally the system in a nutshell here, so not too complex. So I know we're about 15 minutes in here, so if there's any questions, we could go over those here.
Yeah, please feel free to chime in the chat or Q&A from the audience and attendees. And if we don't say anything, we can kind of keep the conversation going. Really, I was curious about the onboarding aspect. What kind of time commitment would you say that takes for just a single property owner?
For a single property, I would say within 15, 20 minutes, you are totally ready to go and ready to price your rate. So every week we do a onboarding webinar. Takes us 30 minutes to go over all of the settings. And by the end of it, if you're following along, you're syncing your prices. Those are live on Airbnb, and you're ready to go here.
Wow, I was not expecting you to say that short amount of time. That's fantastic.
It's pretty quick. Yep.
Yeah. How about, we've heard from some of the other revenue management platforms this week at Astrho Live, and just curious, what's different, would you say, about PriceLabs? What really helps you stand out?
Yep. So the biggest things with us is the amount of customization and control that you have over your rates. So our algorithm, definitely amazing, amazing starting point where most of our users are purely relying off of that on that algorithm. But if you do need to make any adjustments where you say, hey, I'm just not getting it, the bookings I want to be getting, or certain bookings are slipping by, we really give you all of the tools to make adjustments to that pricing strategy yourself. So if there's anything you've been thinking of and you can't see it in PriceLabs, lots of changes we can do on the back end as well. So tons of support there where our team can go in. The ideas that you have for, hey, when should we be discounting? When should we be setting premiums? You don't see them in the settings. A lot of the times we can actually enable those on the back end here. Then additionally, if you are managing multiple properties, we do a lot in terms of bulk adjustments. So if it's just, let's say, 2, 3, 5 listings or so that you're managing, and we have a simple multi-calendar where you can see all of the pricing on one page, make adjustments to all that pricing, make adjustments to that customizations. Then we also have bulk adjustments. So you could say, hey, use, let's say, X minimum stay rules for all of my properties, use the same last minute discounts. And that way you have less of that human error and less of that manual updating going on day to day here.
Sure. So you can keep it highly efficient, almost a set it and forget it approach if needed, or you can really dive in deep and super customize everything it looks like, and a little bit in between.
Definitely. And if you are someone who's diving in deep, hopefully that's, no more than an hour spent looking at your rates every week and implementing those changes, especially if you have a larger portfolio. If you're managing 1 or 2 listings, hopefully you can just check in once a week, see what those booking trends look like, make any adjustments, and you're good to go.
Yeah, very realistic time commitment, even if you do want to really get into the nitty gritty aspects of things.
Yeah.
So that's great. What kind of data are you pulling from? I think you kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier, but can you go into a little more detail there?
Yep. So all of the data that we're using to come up with the rate recommendations, that's all scraped data from Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com here. So we're going into those channels every single day. We're looking at every single listing's availability and pricing calendar. And then we're basically doing a big pull of that data, internalizing it, extracting all of those trends from it, and then applying those trends to your listing. So all of it is going to be very local to your properties. Bigger trends like seasonalities or day of week adjustments, those might be more on the market level. So looking at specific cities or zip codes if you're in a more rural area, but then trends in terms of, hey, which dates are getting more bookings than others, where should we be bumping up those rates? We're really looking at that, very specific, maybe 1 to 300 listings that are closest to you here.
So really your true comp set. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get one more question in. If the audience has one, wants to chime in, feel free. But the last one I had on my list was pricing. Let's talk pricing and how that works. If I've got 1 property, or let's say up to 5 properties, is there any bulk discount, that sort of thing?
Definitely. So there's definitely bulk discount that starts kicking in. So we have a fixed pricing model where, of course, the first month you're free to try out PriceLabs, make sure it works well for your properties before paying anything here. And then going forward, we charge based off of the number of listings that you have syncing here. So for 1 listing, it would be $20 per month. That would handle all of those price updates, give you some of that market data here. And then as you add more and more properties, that cost per additional listing becomes a little bit cheaper here. So we're looking at, let's say, 5 properties, $80 a month. And the idea is that you definitely make that back just in terms of that higher occupancy, that higher revenue per day. And then, just any time savings. That's the cherry on top there.
Perfect. That's great. And I know that you integrate with very long list of other platforms and partners. Do you have a list somewhere within your website, or?
We do. Yep. So if you go to pricelabs.co, we have an integrations page at the top here. So at this point, over 50 PMSs and channel managers that we connect with directly. Otherwise, if you're connected just to Airbnb and Vrbo and you're not using a channel manager, we can send rates directly to those channels there. So if you are using a PMS, most likely we connect with them. Otherwise, if we don't, you can always shoot us a message. We're adding integrations every month here. So yeah, always happy to chat with those teams.
Wonderful. Well, I think that rounds it out really well for our session. Fantastic to hear from you, Oliver, and get a quick little dive into what PriceLabs can do for short-term rental homeowners. Really appreciate your time today, and we'll be posting information about how to connect with you in our membership community. But yeah, thanks so much again for your time today.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. Always appreciate it.
Yep. Take care.